Hello, and welcome to The Black Unconscious,
a mental health podcast about living, coping, and thriving while Black.
I'm Raquel Martin, a PhD candidate in medical and clinical psychology.
And I'm Dr. Justin Hopkins, a licensed clinical psychologist.
This podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a therapeutic relationship with a licensed therapist.
Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to The Black Unconscious. I am your host, Raquel Martin.
And I am Dr. Justin Hopkins.
And today we are doing a bit of a continuation of last week's episode, but from a different album's perspective. So we're going to be talking about 444.
That's right. So last week, episode 6 aired entitled Mental Health in Hip Hop. And we got into speaking about a number of prominent figures, public icons that have disclosed their mental health as of late, including Jennifer Lewis, Kanye West, Kid Cudi. And we started to focus more so on Kanye West, and we mentioned a couple other rappers as well, but we didn't have time to talk a little bit more about Jay-Z. He has become way more open in his music. His latest album, 444, he discloses quite a bit of his own personal growth and self-growth, and even mentions being in therapy and what he got from it. So today we're hoping to have a pretty open discussion about how he talks about mental health, the difficulties around his self-growth, and what it was like for him to be in therapy. So that includes both his album 444, the Footnotes documentary that he released after the album, as well as his interviews following that album. He's done interviews with Time, he's done other interviews on really popular platforms. So we want to get into all of that because he's clearly gone through a transformation.
Yeah, he has. So what would you say are your favorite tracks on the album?
So I really like, let's see, the track about OJ for sure is, I really, really like. I really enjoyed Legacy. Kill JC has some really good bars in there. You can definitely see his growth as a person and some of the conflicts that he's struggled with throughout his entire life in Kill Jay-Z. He just talks about needing to be better, wanting to be a better person for his family, for Beyonce, his wife, being more true to himself. So you can see his pain and the conflicts that he wrestles with internally in that song. That's the first one on the album.
Yeah, his pain. So I really like the album. One, I like Jay-Z, but my biggest thing that I like about the album is how open he is about his growth as a person, and he always talks about how he did that in therapy too. I think I have the same favorite. 444 is actually a favorite, but it's also like it angers me as well, because anytime. I think I am like ridiculously oversensitive to when like I hear about somebody cheating, because as soon as I hear about them cheating, I'm like, oh, okay, well, you're dead to me. And it just really pisses me off. So I appreciated his openness with it. And then it's kind of like, who am I to get pissed off? Like his wife is, with him and it has nothing to do with me. But it's just the whole concept of cheating when you're in such a serious situation, you're married, you have children, and just the growth of some men comes at the destruction of another person, of a woman, sometimes, and sometimes of a man. But it always kind of irritates me.
Yeah, and 444 is one of those, I think, one of those songs that really, really captures the adult Jay-Z who's on the other end of his growth process as a person.
But so it captures the adult Jay-Z, but he has been a grown man for I don't know how long. So it captures. So he just became an adult. It's just so annoying, right? So like you have someone who is married, who has children, comes out with an album. It's like, okay, so now I'm ready to love. Like what? It's just so annoying to me because this is not the first artist or the first time you would hear something like that from someone.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people are like, well, with men, it takes them a while to process or, grow. Okay. So then they get to do whatever the freak they want. Like,
Well, no, right?
No.
And he
speaking for, because you were now speaking for every black man in America. So,
well, I don't think anyone gets to do whatever they want and, not bear any consequences. You know? And I think he is reconciling with the consequences of his delayed emotional growth in this track 444. And I think what you're pointing to, right, is that his wife and perhaps his children, when they discover what happened between he and Beyonce with his infidelity, he's just reconciling the damage that he enacted, and he says, like, his first verse in that track 444, he says, "Look, I apologize, often womanize, took for my child to be born, see through a woman's eyes. Took for these natural twins to believe in miracles. Took me too long for this song. I don't deserve you."
I don't deserve you. And I automatically did a hand clap, and it's so like, and even in the background is like, I'm letting you down every day. It's like, oh my God, it's just,
yeah. And he does, and he acknowledges that his wife was more emotionally advanced and more emotionally attuned than he was, and he even says, like, later in that same song, "You matured faster than me. I wasn't ready, so I apologize." And then he says, "I seen the innocence leave your eyes." Like, I imagine, like, when she discovered his infidelity.
Yeah, because he destroyed her. And not only her, he's like, if my children knew, not only that, like, just, it's just really frustrating because I get that it takes a while for some people, or some men may not know what their emotions are, right? We always talk about the stigma of mental health, and we always talk about, like, or actually we haven't really talked about yet the masculinity piece when it comes to therapy and how processing everything. But like, I think in, who was it? Kill Jay-Z, or he says you can't heal what you don't reveal.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And it took him to go through therapy to go through that. But it just, I mean, we're connecting it to the album because one, it's interesting because we're talking about the hip hop aspect, but I think it also applies overall to so many other situations or so many things that other people may have encountered, or black men, like, or just, I don't want to say all men, but like, this may be something that other people can relate to regarding emotional health and all that.
Oh, I think completely. And the verse that you're referring to, he says, "Cry, Jay-Z, we know the pain is real, but you can't heal what you never reveal." And he does say, both in his interviews and throughout the album, he says, he talks about how he was so detached from his own feelings that he wasn't able to realize the ways in which he was impacting other people in his life, and also the ways in which he was missing out on some of the substance and the fulfilling things that you can attain in life when you are more in touch with who you are and how you feel. And this is a painful process. I think even in the Footnotes documentary, what he talks about is how, there's a few celebrities that go before him. Chris Rock is on there, tons of artists and entertainment industry figures that a lot of folks would recognize. But there's a snippet of him, and what he talks about is just growing up in extremely low income in the projects and being shot at, getting into fights, selling drugs. And he said, coming to the truth about himself and who he was, despite all those other things, was literally the hardest thing he's ever done in his life. Understanding himself, learning about the scars and the trauma that he endured, how he covered up those scars, and how he, in many ways, enacted those scars in his relationship with Beyonce. And, trauma, no one's trauma lives in isolation from other people. We continue to interact with others, and what we don't reveal, we can't heal, is what he's saying. But, what we don't acknowledge and what we don't know about ourselves, what we don't know about our emotional makeup, certainly we can't address, but also what we don't address then goes on to impact other people. And it's often the people that we're closest to that it impacts the most.
Yeah, because like we're not going to impact random people to a certain extent. It's just...
Well, because you're not as close to them. So if you do have an impact, it's not as...
salient.
It's not as severe. Yeah, right. Right.
It's still messed up.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's not even just this. Okay, so like, we're not going to make it like...
What are you saying is messed up? Because there's a point here that I think is important.
So it takes you, and not just you, because there are so many songs. J. Cole got this song, Kevin's Heart, where he was like, I gotta have my cake and another cake too. Even if the baker don't bake like you. Even if the flavor don't taste like... What the... Like, so it's not just him. I get that. But why the freak does it take, like, you get into a relationship...
You're asking for why does it take some men? Right.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's not all men. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's not just men. I'm sure women got some issues with this too. Like, this isn't just like a specific, issue. But seeing as how I'm a woman, I'm just going to, attack the man. So I just... why does it take
sides? Is that
I can only play the cards that I'm dealt, and my cards say female. So that's what
you don't have to pick a side.
You don't have to do anything but be black at this point in life. So like, no, I don't have to. But from this aspect, I'm going to.
I got a rebuttal, but I'll let you finish.
Okay. Oh, you're gonna let me finish?
I am.
Oh my god! I appreciate you so much. So like, why does it take that? Like, why does your growth have to come at at like my destruction? And I'm not saying, me specifically, but like to just to say that, like, not only have I like destroyed my wife, to say like, if my child knew, I would die with all the shame. Like, this is all there for you. Like, you have a family, you have a child. Like, why does it take that for you to decide that, like, now it's time for me to grow up? This man was born, he was born in 1969. This album came out in 2017. And now it's just like, now I know, now I'm going to be an adult. Like, I'm going to grow. Like, it just sucks because I hate that situation. And it just makes me think about like all the stuff I hear from my friends about them dating and all that BS. And I'm just like, I guess, girl, you don't miss your chance. You got to wait till he like 44 before you can hope to get a full grown man. So you might as well just kick it. Like,
well, let me ask you this. Why do you think it took someone like Jay-Z, 44 years of his life to come around to understanding his own emotions and realizing that I won't call it apathy, because clearly it's not apathy. Like, he does care and empathize, but
I definitely don't think he didn't care.
He couldn't access what he's saying, and I mean, in his lyrics and in his interviews, what he's saying is that he could not. He wasn't aware of his own feelings. He wasn't aware of his own stuff, the baggage and emotional distress that lived on internally for him. He wasn't aware of, and so when certain things happened in his marriage, he didn't know how to communicate. Even in going back to that song, what was the name of that song? Yeah, 444. Going back to 444, there's this line where he says, when he's like, Beyonce's on tour in Paris, and he kept calling her, but what he said was, on the phone, was, "Don't embarrass me." And in the verse he said, "I said, don't embarrass me, instead of be mine." Like,
yeah, but then he said that was my first date. That was me trying to tell you to go steady. Like, I felt like that was when he was first started dating her.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, because he goes on to say, that was my proposal for us to go steady. That was your 21st birthday.
Yeah.
And then he says, you matured faster than me. I wasn't ready.
And yet I still jumped in head first. He didn't add that, but I added that. So...
Well, why do you think, going back to my original question, why do you think it took someone like Jay-Z the duration that it did to like get in touch with himself?
I don't know. I wonder if he would have ever felt the need to do that if she didn't leave him. Like, why do I have to scare you for you to appreciate me as a person? Because that's what it comes down to, right? Like, you don't appreciate me. Like, yes, there's some of your stuff. There's some of the fact that you have not acknowledged all the things that you've gone through and how they contribute to you as a person, and thus, as contribute to you as a person, they contribute to me. That means contribute to your wife and your children. But it's also the fact that, like, I don't fully appreciate who you are as a person. So why do I have to leave for you to get that? And I understand that, you know, as someone who works in mental health, understands that like young men, especially young Black men with teens and adolescents, are less likely to be brought in for therapy than young Black women. Like there's a disparity in health in terms of minority status and also in terms of gender. I get that. And I get that when you were growing up, you were told to like act like a man and like not talk about your emotions. And I get that it is very difficult for you to talk about your emotions, especially if you don't even have words for them. It's like, you want me to talk about something, I don't even know what that is. However, that doesn't make it suck any less. And it doesn't make me want to like flip a table any less, because it's just not fair.
It's not fair.
Like, I want to praise your growth as a man. Like,
right.
That's what's up. I want to praise your growth for taking the time to go to therapy. I want to praise your growth for taking the time to acknowledge that this is an issue and decide that like, oh my gosh, you're going to leave me, let me step back. But on the other hand, you know, would have been great if you could have figured this out before we were married and have kids, or if you could have figured this out before I have had to spend like gallons of tears. Like, it doesn't make sense. And he's not the only person to go through this, but it just doesn't seem fair to me.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that's debatable that it's not fair. And there are emotional scars that he has.
My bad.
Sorry. There are emotional scars that he has made in his relationship that they now have to continuously manage and work through. The level of trust that was broken, so on and so forth. And that was solely a choice made by him to engage in that infidelity. I think, but the question of why does it take that long? Or why does it take hurting someone that you actually love dearly? And why does it take you living to the age of 44 in order to figure some of this stuff out? I think is precisely because of some of the reasons that you said, you know, and because Black men are often socialized in a particular way that they're not allowed to feel. They're supposed to be quote unquote tough. They're supposed to have this impenetrable armor that doesn't allow them to connect with anybody else, let alone themselves. You're saying he didn't appreciate Beyonce enough, and I would say that's correct. And I also think he didn't appreciate himself enough. He even says, right, so these two songs, I mean, I think the lyrics, the content of these two songs are especially good, Kill Jay-Z and 444. But going back to Kill Jay-Z, and you know, and I think even the title, right, he's talking, I think, I mean, artistry is about interpretation, right? So my interpretation is that there's a version of him that's dying, and there's a more mature, more developed self that's growing after he has this infidelity and the trauma in his family.
Well, I don't think it's just dying. I think it's a part of him that he's like killing. So
yeah,
I think he's actually trying to destroy that part. So like dying is one, but I think you have to give action to it. So he's trying to destroy this one person.
That's right.
And then just have the genesis of another person.
That's right. And that's valid. And I think that distinction should be made. He's actively killing that part of himself, the part of himself that denies and lies and is emotionless and it's very much a trauma response to what he went through. And I think when he's in that Times interview talking about therapy is the hardest thing he's ever done, like forget like running from gunshots, forget selling drugs, forget running from the cops, like killing off this version of myself is the hardest thing. I have a real appreciation for that because I think there's some truth to that. The level of change, the level of growth that it takes to be so honest with yourself in therapy and to become a better person, I think it's hard to put into words how challenging that is. So going back to that song, Kill Jay-Z, he says, and you know better, I know you do, but you gotta do better. Boy, you owe it to Blue, his daughter. You had no father, you had that armor. So right there, he's talking about, you know, I had to have this armor. I had no father. In the interview, he talks about growing up where he lived, and he coped by shutting off that valve of emotion. There's even a point where, I don't remember which interview it is. It might be the same one. He talks about times when he's almost gotten into fights with other people around his project complex just because someone looked at him.
Oh, yeah. And he said, what's the big deal? And he's like, oh, you think I see you? Like, you think I see, like, not just see you, but like see who you are as a person.
Right. And he said, like, the suspicion was that person saw the pain on the inside, which made him and the other person feel vulnerable, which then got transformed into them wanting to fight one another, saying, oh, you see me, you see my pain. Now I feel weak. Now I feel threatened. Now we got to fight. All because there was a glance that was shared, and the perception was that person saw parts of you that that you didn't want them to see. So I think if you're not a person that has grown up in the kind of emotionally deadening type of environment that a Jay-Z or many other black men grow up into, and you don't have to experience the same level of trauma, do the same things, be of the same economic status that he was when he was very young, or break the law or run from the law to the same extent. For some people, it's just about growing up in households, being around other people that tell them, hey, you can't cry, you can't feel, because none of that stuff is going to be heard. None of that is going to be listened to. We're just going to judge you and call you weak. And so these people get into relationships because we all want to be in relationships. We all want to belong and be accepted and feel love. And what do? We don't know how to access ourselves. And then if you can't access yourself, your own feelings, or appreciate the pain and suffering and also the growth and talents of yourself, then you can't do that for the other person.
And you think that there's no way that they have that some people have any inkling, like no inkling, it's totally in the unconscious that something ain't right.
Well, what are your thoughts? You're picking up on it sounds like you feel like there's some sort of malicious intent, actually.
No, I don't think it's some kind of malicious intent, but I don't think there's cheating on somebody, there's a malicious intent. Yeah. So yes, that is malicious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. At the very least, there is some blatant disregard for someone else's feelings, right?
It's malicious intent.
Which is malicious in itself.
Yeah,
right?
And it's selfish. Right. And it means that you really don't give a damn about me or your family. No, it's awful. So no, that's a malicious intent. So like, what gets me is like, so I understand what you're saying, but it's malicious intent. But that means that no, there is malicious intent. So you mean malicious intent, meaning that they didn't understand what was going on with them?
Well, I think, to me, if you say that if there's malicious intent, to me that means that they were conscious of every single aspect of what they do, and they intended to hurt that person to the degree that they did.
No, I don't see it that way. I see it's no way that you slipped and fell into a woman over and over again. So that is intent, and you know that is not something you should be doing, and you know that if I found out you were going to be hurting me, so that is malicious intent.
Right. I agree.
Period.
I agree. Yeah, and I don't think there's any debating that. I would also say this, and I really don't want to come off as a sympathizer for someone who is who made the choice to cheat on his wife.
Yep, because it is always a choice.
Because it's always a choice.
You can't slip and fall into someone's vagina.
No, you can't. I mean,
what?
I said no, you can't, and like vice versa.
Like I thought you were about to say, then like I was like, what?
No, okay, no, I was just saying that both genders, right? Like everyone, like both genders have affairs and both genders cheat.
Oh my God, yeah.
But
definitely,
I'll also say this, right? There's like how Jay-Z decided to handle his feelings about whatever was going on in their relationship. It's solely on him. How we choose to manage our feelings is our responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of men like Jay-Z who have similar experiences, raised in very emotionally dead atmospheres, instead of acknowledging their hurt and their pain, choose to go into infidelity to manage it instead. Now, the choice that they make is one that causes a lot of harm and pain to other people, and I think it also doesn't resolve their own issues of like what they were hurt by. But so, and I'm going to put on my couples therapist hat for a moment. there's no psychology that develops in isolation of other people. Right? We have our own temperament and proclivities and preferences, and a lot of that is influenced by nature. But there's also a lot of it influenced by nurture. And so any sort of emotional dynamic within a relationship becomes co-created. So before I go further into that, let me say I have no idea what their relationship is. Like, no idea. But what I do know is that that every single emotional dynamic in a relationship is co-created by the person by both partners. So I think sometimes there are situations where you have in heterosexual couples, or you can or even in same-sex couples, and couples where there are very different traditions and core values, like any walk of life, essentially. Like I think there can be situations where there's a repeat of original hurts. So for let's say, hypothetically speaking, there's a man who was raised in an emotionally deadening environment and goes to his wife in a moment of vulnerability, but was turned away.
What?
Hold on. So that moment of vulnerability, which might be a really big step for him, like there's a need that is missed. And so I'm not validating his decision to go and cheat, but what I am saying is that when you talk about relationships, you have to look at the co-created emotional environment. And I've seen in other couples where there are these situations where men who do not know how to handle their feelings get into affairs, but aren't able to articulate the fact that there are moments when they've been vulnerable with their wife, or weren't feeling consoled, or were hurt, or felt like they were emotionally not supported or not received, and so there's this distancing. Now, I'm not saying that happened with Beyonce and Jay-Z by far, because I have no idea. But what I am saying is that Black men perpetuate toxic masculinity for ourselves, and I think there are times when women perpetuate Black toxic masculinity as well. And I think, and that comes out in how sometimes Black men are emasculated by women, when women are not as receptive to a man's feelings. And I think it happens on both ends. Raquel's looking at me like she's going to kill me.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. All right. Fine.
I'm just acknowledging both sides.
Yeah. I'm not saying you always do like this, like that's just the way I normally talk, and you just be like, hands up. Okay. I'm sorry. Just calm down.
I'm not sorry, but I am acknowledging both sides.
Yeah. I understand that. But what I'm saying is, so one, let's not negate the whole aspect of ego that goes from like cheating on someone. The ego that goes from, it's not solely about your emotions. Some people just want to bone other people. Some people just want somebody else to be like up under them and wanting to be around them. Some people just want someone to know they can bag somebody. Some people just want that. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's some upper level emotional thing for other people, but some stuff is just ego. It's not always and then also like the whole like being turned away. That sometimes people just want to bone people.
That it's just ego.
Wanting to have sex with somebody even though you got somebody? Mm-hmm. What would you define it as?
Well, I mean, everything's multiply determined. You don't like that answer.
So what was the point of the question if I can't answer it?
No, you can. I just think it's more than just that. I
think it's human nature for some people. I don't even know how to answer that question. Well, you're saying how would I know that some people cheat just because they can cheat?
What you're saying is that the only, like, most of the time.
Nope, not saying most of the time. I'm saying there are
times when people cheat and it's just solely for their ego.
Yes, or solely just because they want to have sex with someone else.
Well, first of all, let me say this. Like, anytime like someone like steps out of the boundaries of what's agreed upon in a monogamous relationship, there's broken trust. And so that includes like infidelity, physical infidelity, emotional infidelity, so on and so forth. For most monogamous couples, like physical going outside of the relationship physically, that's a broken boundary because they are monogamous. For other couples, like who are open, yada yada, they have different arrangements. So what I'm saying, anytime like you break like the arrangement that you have, like that's a boundary crossing and a violation where trust needs to be repaired. So what I'm saying though is that when those things happen, I think there are a lot of different reasons for why people cross boundaries in relationships. And I think for Jay-Z, let's say even if it was ego, like let's say, not just for Jay-Z, for any man or woman that cheats, that's just saying like, I'm cheating just because like I can. As if I were that person's therapist, I'd also inquire to why. What about cheating is so fulfilling for them? What is it in their relationship that they feel like they're not getting? If they were in a monogamous relationship and they agreed to be monogamous with that person, there are multiple reasons for why people do every single behavior. And again, some that they're aware of, some that they're not. So I don't think for most, if your only reason for doing something is just based in malicious, that's more of a sociopathic quality.
I'm not saying it's based in malicious. I'm saying some people have sex with other people because they want to. I'm not saying it has, like, that's what I'm saying. You're saying, you legit don't think there's any time where somebody cheats just because they want to have sex with somebody else other than the person they with. Like, you legit, that's what you're saying. You're saying there's no way that somebody can have sex with somebody just because they want to have sex with somebody.
I'm not saying there's no way. I think that there are a lot of different reasons for why those things can happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why everything can happen, but there's also the fact that, like, just saying, like, oh, oh my God, that, like, maybe you tried to talk to someone and you were turned away or something like that. Like, I mean, come on. The reason why that irritates me is as a reason for men, because for women, it's kind of like raise your hand if you've been hurt before. Everybody's been hurt before.
Sure.
And you don't see me walking around, like, acting like boo, like, acting like, yeah, it's just. I understand where you're coming from, but like, it's not an excuse.
No, I'm not saying it's an excuse. But our job is to understand the reason, right? I'm not discrediting the pain. I'm not discrediting the problem. I'm not saying what's right or wrong, because those are personal decisions, and I don't have a monopoly on morality.
Cheating is wrong.
But I do think breaking people's trust is personally wrong. Like, me personally, like, I think that is wrong. But it's not my place to say what's right and wrong for the patients that I see. It's for me to help them discern what they want to do. And I think in terms of like understanding people, like if we want to understand why this tends to happen, we've got to be open to other ideas about it. We have to consider like all the other factors that go into play about why things like this happen. Why it is that, and this is a common dynamic, right? Heterosexual couple, guy is not very emotional, not in touch with his emotions, does things that hurts himself and his partner and his family. And woman is the one who is kind of dealing with that and picking up the pieces and hoping to recover. What I'm saying is that if Jay-Z, like many other black men, if they are in these spaces where they don't feel like it's not okay, they don't feel like they have to hide their feelings or just be this robot of a human, is it possible that you can access your emotions better so that you can have a more emotionally intimate conversation? I think so. And so now, based with that, I want to look at all of the factors that contribute to men not being able to access their emotions. And I think, again, like men reinforce toxic masculinity. I think there are women who reinforce toxic masculinity. I think there are systems in society that reinforce toxic masculinity. And I think we have to talk about each and every one of those things.
Yeah, so I get that the job is to analyze behavior. I understand that as a clinician, but because I'm not going to sit here and work with a patient or work with a family that I disagree with and be like, that's wrong, you're wrong. But that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about like this specific situation and the way I get to see it from the outside looking in. And no, it's not for us to say what's right or wrong for our patients, but Sean Carter is not my patient. And in my opinion, cheating is wrong. The destruction of that. Yeah, but you said like, oh, well, we can't really say like, what's right or wrong.
Well, it's wrong for me. I can say what's wrong for me. It's wrong for me. Like, it's not for me to say whether it's right or wrong for somebody else. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think okay. I mean, I guess we can never speak for anyone else, but
and I'm not. And just hear me clearly, right? Because I think being on the other side of an affair is like, I think it really is traumatic. I think that is the only way to describe it. It is traumatic because you question everything you once knew. The trust is broken. How you think about the person has now changed. You question like just every sort of detail or things that you thought that you understood so clearly about your relationship, about the person. It truly is traumatic. So I'm not dismissing. Like, I feel like that's kind of understood, that cheating is damaging in so many ways that that are really like hard to just kind of list just now. But,
and it's not just how it destroys a relationship. It's how you destroy it, how it destroys the person, because you're going to think about what you did wrong. You're going to think about like, why wasn't I good enough? Like, it's not just like, not only did you destroy us as a couple, but you destroyed me as a person. Like, it's just too, and that's going to stay with someone forever. But that doesn't give them the right that if they go into another relationship to be like, oh, I've been hurt before, so I guess this is the reason behind this. I think that's when you know that you need to go see somebody or talk to someone about it. Mm-hmm. I guess. No, I don't guess. I know. Yeah, that's when you probably need to go talk to someone about it.
Yeah. Well, I also think, I also think the point that you're making is just that, it's so unfair and so unfortunate that Jay-Z's self-growth came at the expense of his wife's trust and how he sees it as, I mean, I think it's a little patronizing. He says innocence. The innocence left her eyes. But, I mean, that is unfair. And I guess where I am is, why did this unfair thing happen with this man who clearly had the capacity to be more emotionally tuned with himself as he is now? He's clearly at a place now where he can look back and say, wow, look at all this wrong and pain that I've caused. Mm-hmm. And he's reflecting even on, in this album, he's reflecting on like when his children find out, like what's like.
Do you have specific reasons? I mean, other than the ones you stated of why you think they happened, like anything that we haven't touched on why you think it happened?
Was what I said not sufficient?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, like, just, I don't know, like this, both. What
I get where you're coming from, but I'm not about to buy in. Like, nah. Like, so I understand where you're coming from. Right.
So that's what I'm asking. Like, what is it that you're not buying into?
I would say the majority of it.
Well, what about it?
It sounds like an excuse.
In what way?
All of it. Like, it just sounds like an excuse. Like, I've been turned away from my wife when I tried to share my feelings, so now I need to talk to someone else. Or, oh, I've been hurt before, so, it's hard for me to process this and I deal with it. That's the underlying reason why I decide to do this. Or, what was the other one? I was never taught how to, never taught how to express my emotions, and I guess I just do that through my penis. So, like, I just don't. And I get it clinically. I get it from a clinical aspect, and even the thought of just like sitting here talking about like someone else's relationship. But it's just, I think it's important to understand that, like, as a woman, when you see something like this happens, like a little bit of hope, like, gets stolen. Sure. Yeah. So it is like it is going to be. It's just difficult. Like, a little bit of hope gets stolen. Like, a little, right. Just like, and I'm sure no one knows the intricacies of anyone's relationship. And I am a Beehive member. I love Beyonce so much. I got like a "What would Beyonce do" sticker in my office.
She does.
But it's also,
it's actually like a whole nameplate.
It is a nameplate, and it's right next to my male tears mug that I drink from every single day. But it's also the fact that it's like, it's just hard. It's you think like, oh, what hope do I have? And which you shouldn't even think, because you don't know how people are when they get off the stage and stuff like that. But it's just really hard for me to hear like things like that. I get it from a mental health aspect, and I get if I'm working with someone who's dealt with something like that, like, I'm never, my feelings and stuff are never in the room when I'm with my patient, because that's the whole amazing thing about training. Like, you learn how to separate and how I can do what's best for my patient, like, whatever. But as a woman, it's just very difficult. And just given my specific situation, like all of the shit I hear my friends going through, like on the dating thing, and then like just hearing like somebody cheating. It's just like, oh my God. It's just so annoying. Mm-hmm. It's just so annoying. Right. And to hear like the whole excuse. I don't know any one of my friends or anyone female who has not been hurt before, but then they still got to keep on chugging along. Like it doesn't seem fair that like, I wonder how the tables would be turned if it was, I get it's not exactly the same when it comes to a woman, but I wonder how the tables would be turned, you know, if it was just like, I would love to see the outcry. If they come out with an album like Sight, it was Beyonce who cheated.
I can't speak for the outcry. I don't know how people will respond. I do think there would be I imagine there would be a double standard that would appear in public opinion, where you would have, and again, just going off of like, just publicly, traditionally, what I think a lot of men versus women would say, whereas there might be an expectation that the woman should forgive the man if he physically cheats, whereas if a woman physically cheats, then the man is left with a more difficult decision. I don't necessarily buy into that personally. Again, like I just think these things it's always a case-by-case basis, and you have to figure out the particular case and understand. In other words, you have to figure out what someone else feels and thinks and believes.
Yeah, I think the double standard is the biggest part that gets to me. And I can't wait till we do an episode on like stereotypes and like strong Black women or angry Black women or like, you know, overbearing man and stuff like that. Because the stereotype thing goes both ways. But the double standard really pisses me off, because the fact that I think men are actually given more space to grow, and then just like to have the option, whereas like even on the cheating aspect of like cheating on your spouse, like a woman may get looked at worse, or on the fact it's just like, well, you know, he's still growing as a person, he's had all of these like things that have happened to him, and I can't see it being the same if it was a woman. And the double standard just really it's annoying, and it's also, you know, just irritating, because the double standard is hard. Like I don't think anyone has it. I do think certain people have it worse, but like being a woman is hard without having like, I'd like, you know, we got a ride or die, but you need to hold me down like edge control as well. Like I don't need, you know, some like slippery sliding like pink lotion looking mofo who can't even like can't even hold me down in like New Orleans weather. I need someone who's just going to be there. And then if you're not there, it's just like, oh, well, I mean, he's only 40 and he's just great. It's just like, what the, are you kidding? It's just annoying.
No, it is, and it's unfair, and again, I really don't want to take that away, but I guess my commentary is anchored in the idea that like every behavior has a cause.
I get that.
And we're just not aware of it. And in relationships, the cause is often co-created, and
no, I don't agree with that.
Also
though I'm not couples therapist though.
Right.
You've had way more experience with that than me.
And I think a lot of times like there is stuff that is unconscious. And so, for example, I've worked with couples where there's been infidelity on the man's part or infidelity on the woman's part, or with same sex couples when there's been infidelity. And so I've worked with couples who have those kind of issues, and the first thing is about the partner who's committed the infidelity being held fully accountable for the infidelity and the damage that they caused to the other person, because that was a choice. Mm-hmm. Whatever you were feeling, whatever you were dealing with, there is a choice that was made to manage your feelings in a way outside of the relationship that ended up damaging the other person. That's number one. And so you have to, we all have choices and make choices, and you have to hold yourself accountable and be held accountable with the choice that you made, and acknowledging the trauma that you caused and the trust that you broke, and then making a commitment to reestablish that trust. Then after that, there's this period where you, again, continue to build trust. You answer questions about what happened. You work together towards building your relationship back up. And then much later, there's a conversation about what about the relationship, understanding that the infidelity was that single person's part. What is it about the relationship that allowed, what is it about the boundaries of the relationship that allowed for this infidelity to take place and that made the decision to be unfaithful more appealing to that particular person in light of their psychology and in light of the boundaries of the relationship?
So, okay. And just make one more point and then we're going to wrap up because, so are you saying that you cannot acknowledge, or we're not, that's not what you're saying, I'm asking. Do you think that it is possible that some people, given where they are in their life, you don't think there's any inkling that they cheated and it was not like a co-relationship thing, it was that person's thing, like it was the cheater's thing? Because you're saying it comes from both sides. You're saying, so are you saying that you don't believe there's any time when the person cheated and it was on them, not like, oh, this is how it,
well, you were right the first time. Like, I'm not saying that, like the choice to cheat. I'm saying there are feelings behind the choice to cheat that we need to find out, and how, like, and why those feelings existed in the relationship.
Okay,
is a co-created thing. That's all I'm saying. And so, and to that end, like I think there are a lot of men who, again, like men kind of perpetuate toxic masculinity, not talking about their feelings, handling their feelings in ways that can be self-destructive, and infidelity could be added to that list. And so when you're thinking about the reasons for why infidelity happens and why those choices happen, we have to look at the person who commits the infidelity, the systems in place that perpetuate the number of feelings that contributed to the infidelity. And so I think for someone like Jay-Z that grew up in the environment that he had, I think this is a brother who did not have a chance whatsoever to become more honest and real about his own emotions with himself. And Beyonce unfairly was a casualty of that.
Yep. And I'm sure there are other people who had the same situation and didn't cheat on their wives.
Cheating is a choice.
Yeah.
And he made a choice that impacted his family in a terrible way.
And me.
And you.
Anything that hurts Beyonce hurts me. But that's all we got for today, guys. Once again, make sure you leave us reviews on iTunes and Facebook. Please send us your questions, comments, concerns by going to theblackunconscious.com and hitting Ask Us. And we're also on... is it Radiotopia? I think we're also on Radiotopia now, so you can pretty much find us. Yeah,
we're on YouTube everywhere.
Now. Yeah, we are on YouTube. It's not a video aspect, but hopefully we'll be adding that later, so you can see how crazy I be looking at Justin and how he looks like, how he's always just like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just trying to share my opinions, and you looking like you're trying to stab me.
That is our
That is like, just like, I just think we should just don't generalize. And I'm like, forget them. Like, I don't give a damn. Generalize. But yeah.
The truth is gray. We know that the truth is always very gray and complicated. It just is.
Well, once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.